Admiral Choi Min-jun sat in his command chair aboard the battle carrier, indomitable, watching the stars through the bridge viewport. His fleet had been exploring this sector for 3 weeks now. 12 ships, all built by human hands, all carrying the hopes of Earth's expansion into deep space. It was supposed to be a routine survey mission. The sensor alarm changed everything. "Admiral, we have contacts," said Captain Park Ji-woo from her tactical station. Her fingers moved across the holographic display. 15 ships, unknown design. They just appeared at the edge of the system. Choi leaned forward. In his 50 years, he had seen many things. Wars on Mars, pirate raids in the asteroid belt. But this was different. These were not human ships. "Get me Dr. Yoon," he said calmly. Dr. Yoon Seo-yeon arrived on the bridge within minutes. She was humanity's best xenolinguist, though she had never actually met an alien before. No human had. Until now. The comm system crackled to life. A voice spoke in a language that sounded like grinding metal and wind chimes. Dr. Yoon's computer worked fast, analyzing the patterns. Within seconds, her screen showed a translation. "They're hailing us," she said, her voice tight. Choi nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered. A creature appeared. It had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern on its face. Its skin looked like polished stone, gray and smooth. It wore what looked like ceremonial armor, covered in symbols and metals. "I am Grand Emissary Jothik of the Valorian Empire," the alien said. The computer translated his words with only a small delay. "You will identify yourselves immediately." Choi stood up slowly. He straightened his uniform jacket. "I am Admiral Choi Min-jun of the United Earth Space Forces. You're in human territory." Jothik's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Human? We have no record of this species." "No matter. By the authority of the eternal Valorian Empire, which has ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years, I hereby claim this system and all its inhabitants for the Empire. You will lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Your ships will be catalogued. Your species will be evaluated for service to the Empire." There was silence on the bridge. Every human crew member stared at the screen. Then someone laughed. It was Engineer Kim Tae-yang, standing near the power distribution panel. He couldn't help himself. The laugh spread. Captain Park covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. Even Dr. Yoon smiled, though she tried to hide it. Choi didn't laugh, but he did smile. It was not a friendly smile. "Did I say something amusing?" Jothik asked. His voice carried an edge now. "Yeah," Choi said, sitting back down in his chair. "You did. Let me explain something to you, emissary. Humans have been killing each other for thousands of years. We've fought over water, over land, over ideas, over nothing at all. We've burned our own cities. We've split atoms just to make bigger bombs. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and our own stupidity. And you think you can just show up and tell us we're yours now?" Jothik's stone-like face remained still. "Your history of violence is irrelevant. The Empire has conquered 12,000 star systems. We have defeated species with technology beyond your understanding. We have crushed rebellions on 100 worlds." "Can't we?" Choi leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. "Captain Park, show our guest what we found when we scanned his ships." Park Ji-woo touched her console. Data appeared on the screen between the Admiral and the emissary. Ship specifications, weapon systems, shield frequencies, power output. "Your shields run on a rotating frequency pattern," Park said, her voice professional. "It cycles every 12 seconds. Very predictable. Your plasma weapons have an effective range of about 40,000 kilometers. That's cute. Our railguns hit targets at twice that range. Your ships use fusion drives. We use quantum jump drives. We can appear anywhere in this system in less than a minute. She paused, then added with a slight smile, "Your advanced technology is about 50 years behind ours." Jothik's 4 eyes widened. "Impossible. The Empire has perfected these systems over millennia." "That's the problem," said Kim Tae-young, stepping forward. "You perfected them, and then stopped. We're still fighting, still improving, still building better ways to kill each other." Choi stood again. "Here's how this is going to work, emissary. You have 71 hours to leave this system. Take your fleet and go back to your empire. Tell them humans aren't interested in joining. Tell them we said no. Tell them we laughed at you. You dare refuse the empire." Jothik's voice rose. "We gave you the honor of peaceful subjugation. Now you will face annihilation. We will return with war fleets. We will burn your worlds. We will make an example of your species that will echo through the galaxy for 10,000 years. Looking forward to it," Choi said. He nodded to Dr. Yoon, who cut the transmission. The screen went dark. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Captain Park spoke quietly. "Admiral, did we just declare war on a 50,000-year-old galactic empire?" "They declared war on us," Choi corrected. "We just told them we're not scared." He turned to face his crew. "All ships, battle stations, get me tactical analysis on every one of those vessels. I want to know how they move, how they fight, how they die. Kim, prep the jump drives. Park, coordinate with the other captains. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." "Sir," said Park, "they outnumber us 3-1. Choi smiled again. It was the smile of a man who had fought in the Mars Rebellion, who had seen Earth's bloodiest conflicts, who came from a species that had survived everything its own homeworld could throw at it. "Good," he said. "Fair fights are boring." The crew moved with purpose now. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. Across the fleet, human vessels powered up weapons, charged shields, and prepared jump coordinates. They had 71 hours until the deadline. They would use every second. In the darkness of space, the Valorian fleet waited, confident and ancient. They had conquered 1,000 species. They had never lost. They were about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity. Commander Hwang Hyun-woo checked his watch. 72 hours had passed. The deadline was over. His destroyer, Soul's Fury, held position 200,000 kilometers from the Valorian fleet. Around him, 4 other human ships waited in the darkness. "They're moving," said Lieutenant Kang Min-ji from the weapons station. "All 15 ships. They're forming an attack pattern." Hwang had expected this. The Valorians moved in a perfect wedge formation, like something from an ancient military textbook. Beautiful, organized, predictable. "All ships, execute pattern Delta," Hwang said calmly into the fleet comm. "Let's teach them respect." The Valorian fleet advanced slowly, their massive ships gleaming with shield energy. On the bridge of the Valorian flagship, Grand Emissary Jothik watched the 5 human vessels with satisfaction. They looked so small compared to his warships. This would be over quickly. Then the human ships vanished. Jothik's 4 eyes widened in confusion. "Where did they go?" "Scan for them." "Sir, they just appeared behind us," his sensor officer shouted. The Indomitable materialized 3 kilometers behind the Valorian rear guard. Admiral Choi didn't waste time. "Fire," he said simply. Railguns spoke with thunder. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, crossed the distance in milliseconds. They hit the Valorian shields at the exact moment the frequency cycled to its weakest point. The shields collapsed like paper. The slugs punched through the hull of the first Valorian ship. Atmosphere vented into space. Explosions rippled along its spine. Within seconds, the ship was dead, tumbling helplessly in the void. "Jump," Choi ordered. The Indomitable disappeared again, reappearing on the opposite side of the Valorian formation. Soul's Fury and the other human ships did the same, blinking in and out of existence, appearing at random points around the enemy fleet. It wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. Jathic watched in horror as his ships died one by one. The humans never stayed still long enough to target. They appeared, fired, and vanished before his weapons could lock on. When his ships tried to adjust their shield frequencies, the humans adapted faster. Target their jump signatures. Jathic ordered desperately. We can't, sir, his tactical officer said, his voice shaking. They're not following any pattern. It's chaos. It's madness. No, said Jathic quietly, understanding dawning on him. He was right. Humans had spent centuries fighting each other in space. Every tactic, every trick, every desperate move had been tried and tested in combat. The Valorian Empire had spent millennia crushing primitive species with overwhelming force. They had forgotten how to fight an equal opponent. They had never faced an opponent who was better. Commander Huang watched his tactical display with satisfaction. His crew worked with practiced efficiency, calling out targets, coordinating jumps, timing their shots perfectly. Commander, said Lieutenant Kang, the Valorian flagship is trying to retreat. Don't let it, Huang said. That ship carries their emissary. I want him alive. Soul's Fury jumped directly in front of the fleeing flagship. At the same time, the Indomitable appeared above it, and two more human destroyers materialized on either side. The Valorian ship was boxed in. Admiral Choi's voice came over the comm, broadcast on all frequencies so every Valorian ship could hear. Emissary Jathic, you wanted to see what happens when humans fight. Are you satisfied? 2C. On the Valorian flagship, Jathic stood among sparking consoles and injured crew members. His ship was damaged but not destroyed. Around him, his fleet was burning. 12 ships were gone. Only 3 remained intact, and they were surrounded. We surrender, Jathic said quietly. Say it louder, Choi demanded. Say it so every ship in your fleet can hear. Jathic's pride broke. I, Grand Emissary Jathic of the Valorian Empire, surrender my fleet to the human forces. Good, said Choi. Now listen carefully. You're going to take your 3 remaining ships and go back to your empire. You're going to tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them humans don't bow. Tell them we fight back. Tell them if they send more ships, we'll send them back in pieces. Do you understand? Yes, Jathic whispered. I can't hear you. Yes, Jathic shouted. I understand. Excellent, Choi said. His voice was calm again, almost friendly. Oh, and one more thing. We're keeping your flagship. We want to study it. You and your crew will transfer to one of your surviving ships. You have 10 minutes. End. The transfer happened quickly. Valorian crew members evacuated their flagship in escape pods, picked up by their sister ships. They moved with mechanical precision, their spirits broken. Sergeant Lee Dong-hyun led a team of human marines to board the abandoned Valorian flagship. They moved through corridors designed for beings larger than humans, past technology that looked impressive but functioned poorly. Lee had fought in ground combat on Mars. He had stormed bunkers and cleared buildings. This was easier. It's a museum piece, he said over the comm. Everything here is old. Really old. They haven't updated their designs in centuries. In the medical bay, Dr. Nam Hae-jin examined wounded Valorians who had been too injured to evacuate. She worked carefully, her medical training covering human biology, but adaptable enough to help these aliens. As she treated a young Valorian officer, he spoke to her in broken English, learned from the computer during the battle. Why do you help me? The Valorian asked. We came to conquer you. Because the fight is over, Dr. Nam said simply. We're not monsters. We fight when we have to, but when it's done, we show mercy. The Valorian stared at her with all 4 eyes. What kind of species are you? Dr. Nam smiled sadly. The kind that survives. The 3 remaining Valorian ships limped away from the Kepler 442 system. On board the lead vessel, Grand Emissary Jathic sat alone in what had been a spare quarters. His ceremonial armor was scorched. His pride was shattered. He began composing his report to the Empire. He wrote of ships that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. He wrote of weapons that cut through shields as if they weren't there. He wrote of humans who laughed in the face of threats and fought with a precision born from countless wars against themselves. But most importantly, he wrote about the fear. For 50,000 years, the Valorian Empire had inspired fear in every species they met. Now, for the first time in millennia, a Valorian felt that fear himself. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. In those 11 minutes, the Empire learned that humanity was not prey. They were predators, born on a world that had tried to kill them since they first stood upright, evolved to fight and survive and win. Back in the Kepler 442 system, Admiral Choi stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the debris field that was once a Valorian fleet. Around him, his crew celebrated quietly, professionally. They had won, but they knew this was just the beginning. "Sir," said Captain Park, "intelligence estimates say the Empire has thousands of ships. Then we'll need to build more ships too," Choi said. He turned to face her. "They came here thinking we'd roll over. They learned different. Now they'll either leave us alone, or they'll send everything they have. Either way, we're ready." He was right. In the darkness between stars, a message raced toward the heart of the Valorian Empire. It carried news of defeat, of humiliation, of a species that refused to submit. The Empire would not ignore such an insult. They would respond with overwhelming force, and humanity would be waiting. 3 months had passed since the incident at Kepler 442. In the capital city of the Valorian Empire, deep within the Imperial Palace, Grand Admiral Zelthorn received his orders. He was old, even by Valorian standards. He had commanded fleets for 3 centuries. He had crushed 27 rebellions. He had never lost. 200 ships, the Emperor told him. "Take 200 warships and destroy these humans. Make an example that will terrify every species in the galaxy." Zelthorn bowed. "It will be done, my Emperor." The punishment fleet assembled over 3 weeks. 200 of the Empire's finest warships, carrying enough firepower to burn entire planets. The fleet jumped toward human space with absolute confidence. They expected surrender. They expected begging. They expected fear. On Earth, in the war room beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Song Sung-ho studied the reports. Intelligence had tracked the Valorian fleet's movements. 200 ships. It was a threat humanity had never faced before. "Options?" Song asked his staff. "We can evacuate the outer colonies," suggested one officer. "Pull back to Earth and make our stand there." "No," said Song firmly. "We don't run. We never run." He looked at the holographic display showing human-controlled space. "They expect us to fight them the way they fight. Ship to ship, formation against formation. We won't give them that battle." Intelligence Officer Bei Yuna stepped forward. She had spent 3 months studying every piece of data from the captured Valorian flagship. "Admiral, I think I found something. Their entire fleet operates on a centralized command network. Every ship reports to the flagship. Every decision goes through the chain of command. It's extremely efficient. But if you disrupt the command ship, you disrupt the entire fleet." Song finished, his eyes narrowed. "They've never fought an enemy that doesn't follow rules." "Exactly," Bei said. "The Empire has won for so long because everyone fights the same way. Formations, hierarchy, predictable tactics. They don't know how to handle chaos." In the research station orbiting Luna, Dr. Shin Jae-sung worked on something new. The human jump drive was already revolutionary, allowing ships to move instantly across vast distances. But Shin had miniaturized it. His new creation was the size of a coffin, could appear anywhere within a light second, and carried a 5-megaton nuclear warhead. He called it a jump mine. "The beauty," Shin explained to the military observers, "is that it's automated. No crew needed. We program coordinates, set a timer, and release it. The mine jumps to the target location, detonates before anyone can react. It's invisible until it arrives. How many can we build? Asked one general. We have materials for 500, Shin said. We can have them ready in 2 weeks. Shin said. Captain Im Da-un commanded the stealth corvette Ghost of Busan. Her ship was special, designed for reconnaissance with every stealth system humans could create. While the Valorian fleet approached human space, Im's ship followed them from a distance, completely undetected. She watched. She listened. She learned. Their fleet commander is Grand Admiral Zelthorn, Im reported back to Earth. He's running everything through a tactical network. Every ship is linked. They move as one giant formation. She paused. Admiral Song, they're not even running proper scouting operations. They're so confident that they're practically marching in a straight line. Song smiled grimly. Good. Let them stay confident. All units, execute Operation Hornet. The Valorian fleet entered the outer edges of human territory. Zelthorn expected immediate contact with human forces. Instead, there was nothing. No ships, no transmissions, no resistance. They're hiding, Zelthorn said with satisfaction. Scan for their vessels. Nothing within sensor range, Grand Admiral, reported his sensor officer. That's when the first mine appeared. It materialized 3 kilometers from a Valorian cruiser. The ship's crew had exactly 1.3 seconds to register its presence before the nuclear warhead detonated. The explosion tore through the cruiser's shields and hull. The ship broke in half before Zelthorn could react. More mines appeared throughout his formation. 5 ships died in the first minute. 10 ships in the first 5 minutes. His fleet scattered, breaking formation, trying to escape weapons that appeared from nowhere. Maintain formation, Zelthorn ordered. Hold your positions. But the damage was done. His ships fled in different directions, the central command network breaking down as captains made their own decisions to survive. For the first time in centuries, a Valorian fleet operated without perfect coordination. That's when the human raiders struck. Commander Huang's Soul's Fury appeared 50 light-years behind the Valorian front line, deep in what should have been safe space. There, moving slowly and without escort, were supply ships carrying fuel and ammunition for the punishment fleet. Target the supply convoy, Huang ordered. No survivors among the cargo ships. His destroyers appeared in sequence, methodically destroying every supply vessel. Valorian escort ships tried to respond, but they were outmatched and outnumbered. Within an hour, 3 months of supplies burned in the void. Across human space, similar raids occurred. Small human task forces struck at Valorian logistics, communications, relays, and scout ships. The Empire's supply lines stretched across light years, and humans attacked every vulnerable point. On the bridge of his flagship, Zelthorn watched his fleet falling apart. He had started with 200 ships. After 2 weeks of jump mine attacks and raiding, he had 140 functional vessels. He hadn't seen a single main human battle group. They refused to fight him directly. This is not warfare, Zelthorn said to his staff. This is terrorism. This is cowardice. This is effective, said his tactical officer quietly. Sir, we've lost 30% of our strength, and we haven't even reached Earth yet. If we continue, they'll bleed us dry before we arrive. We continue, Zelthorn said firmly. The Emperor commands it. We will reach Earth, and we will burn it to ash. They cannot hide forever. But Fleet Admiral Song had no intention of hiding forever. He simply wanted the Valorians exhausted, frustrated, and demoralized before the real battle began. Every day, more human ships arrived at Earth. Colony fleets returned. Construction yards worked overtime building more vessels. Civilian ships were armed with whatever weapons could be mounted. Song stood on the observation deck of the command station, looking at Earth below. The blue marble hung in space, beautiful and fragile. humanity's homeworld. The place where they had evolved, where they had learned to survive against impossible odds. "They're coming here," said Bay, standing beside him. "Intelligence confirms it. Zelthorn is heading directly for Earth." "Let him come," Song said quietly. "We've bled him. We've confused him. We've made him angry. An angry commander makes mistakes." He turned to look at Bay. "B, how many ships do we have now?" 87 warships, 312 armed civilian vessels, and the sole defense grid is complete." Song nodded. "The Valorians think in terms of ship-to-ship combat. They're about to learn that humans don't fight fair. We fight to win." In the darkness between stars, the Valorian punishment fleet limped toward Earth. They had come to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, they were learning one themselves. They learned that numbers don't matter against an enemy who refuses to play by your rules. They learned that tradition and honor mean nothing to a species that fights for survival. Most importantly, they learned that humans were not afraid. Grand Admiral Zelthorn sat in his command chair, reviewing casualty reports. 60 ships lost to mines. Supply lines cut. Communications disrupted. His perfect fleet was broken before the real battle even began. Pride and duty demanded he continue. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered what he refused to acknowledge. This was a mistake. Ahead, Earth waited. General Ko Young-jae watched the tactical display as the Valorian fleet entered the Sol system. 140 warships, still a massive force despite their losses. They moved slowly now, cautiously, scanning for mines and ambushes. Grand Admiral Zelthorn had learned to be careful. "They're heading directly for Earth," Ko said to his staff. "Just as we predicted." Kosim. From his position on the Orbital Defense Command Station, Ko could see Earth below and the moon beyond. Both worlds were transformed. What the Valorians couldn't see yet would soon become very clear. Humanity had turned its entire home system into a fortress. Lieutenant Commander Jeon Eun-ji sat in her fighter cockpit, one of 300 pilots waiting in hidden bays on the dark side of the moon. Her small craft was barely larger than an old airplane, but it carried the same jump drive technology as the big warships. In her hands, it became something deadly. "All wings, maintain calm silence," came the order. "Wait for the signal." In the asteroid belt, converted mining ships waited among the rocks. On Mars, military installations that looked abandoned from orbit hummed with power. Around Earth, tens of thousands of automated railgun platforms drifted in carefully calculated orbits, looking like space debris until activated. The Valorian fleet advanced. They expected orbital defenses. They expected some human ships. They found something else entirely. "Grand Admiral," said the sensor officer on Zelthorn's flagship, "I'm detecting multiple objects around Earth. Thousands of them. They appear to be weapons platforms." Zelthorn studied the readouts. Thousands? He had never seen a defense network so dense. "Continue forward. Prepare to engage." That's when the platforms came alive. All at once, 10,000 automated railgun turrets turned toward the Valorian fleet. They fired in sequence, creating a wall of metal slugs moving at incredible speed. The barrage was so dense that Valorian shields couldn't absorb it all. Ships shuddered under the impacts. Armor cracked. Several smaller vessels lost power. "Return fire." Valorian plasma cannons lit up space. They destroyed platforms by the dozens, by the hundreds. But for every platform destroyed, 10 more kept firing. The platforms were cheap, simple, and disposable. Human ships were expensive and carried crews. It was a trade humanity was happy to make. While the Valorian fleet focused on the platforms, Jeon Eun-ji received her signal. "All wings, jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Execute." 300 fighter craft materialized inside the Valorian formation. They appeared within the enemy ship's shield perimeters. Too close for the big warship weapons to track them effectively. Jean's fighter screamed past a Valorian destroyer, her railguns stitching holes along its hull. She fired, jumped, reappeared behind another ship, and fired again. The Valorian crews panicked. They were used to fighting other capital ships in organized formations. These tiny human fighters jumped constantly, never staying in one place for more than a few seconds. They were impossible to target, impossible to predict. "Focus on the fighters," Xelthorn ordered. "Ignore the platforms," but that meant letting the platforms keep firing. Either choice was bad. That was the point. From the belt of asteroids between Mars and Jupiter, dozens of converted mining ships emerged. These were the civilian vessels that Captain An Sok-jin and others like him commanded. His ship, Merchant's Revenge, had once hauled iron ore. Now, it hauled vengeance. "All civilian ships, target the Valorian rearguard," An said over the comm. His crew was a mix of miners, traders, and colonists. None of them were trained soldiers. All of them knew how to fight. "Remember, aim for their engines. We don't need to destroy them. Just stop them from running." The civilian ships attacked with improvised weapons. Welding lasers retrofitted into cutters. Mining explosives turned into missiles. Industrial tractors becoming ramming vessels. They weren't elegant, but they worked. On Mars, General Ko gave another order. "Fire the surface batteries." The moon had been converted into a massive weapon, but Mars had something different. Across the red planet's surface, thousands of electromagnetic launch rails pointed skyward. On Ko's signal, they fired. Rocks. Simple asteroids collected from Mars's moons, accelerated to 30% of light speed. At that velocity, they didn't need to be sophisticated. Kinetic energy turned them into planet killers. 20 Valorian ships died in the first barrage, simply ceasing to exist as the rocks punched through them. Grand Admiral Xelthorn watched his fleet dying. They had entered the Sol system with confidence. Now they were caught in a killing field that attacked from every direction. Automated platforms, jump fighters, civilian vessels, kinetic bombardment, and somewhere out there, the main human battle fleet hadn't even shown itself yet. "Pull back," Xelthorn ordered. "Reform at the edge of the system." But pulling back meant running a gauntlet through the orbital platforms, through the fighter wings, through the civilian ships. 78 Valorian vessels died trying to retreat. Only 62 made it to relative safety at the system's edge. Xelthorn stood on his bridge, surrounded by displays showing casualty reports. He had started with 200 ships. He now had 62. He hadn't even reached Earth orbit. The humans had turned their entire star system into a weapon. War correspondent Park Bo-ra broadcast from Earth throughout the battle. Her signal was unencrypted, sent across the galaxy for anyone to hear. She wanted the galaxy to watch. "This is Park Bo-ra, broadcasting from Earth," she said as explosions lit up the sky above her. "The Valorian Empire came to our home system with threats of annihilation. They came to make an example of humanity. Let me show you what happened instead." Her camera showed Valorian ships burning. It showed human fighters dancing between enemy vessels. It showed ordinary civilians in converted mining ships, fighting alongside professional military. It showed Earth, still intact, still defiant. Let this be a lesson to any empire, any fleet, any species that thinks humans will bow. Park said, "We don't surrender. We don't beg. We fight. And we win." Admiral Choi Min-jun arrived aboard the Indomitable with the main human battle fleet. He had stayed hidden beyond the orbit of Neptune, waiting for the right moment. Now, with the Valorian fleet broken and retreating, he made his appearance. Grand Admiral Xelthorn. Choi broadcast on open channels. "This is Admiral Choi Min-jun. I'm giving you one chance. Leave now, or die here." On his damaged flagship, Xelthorn felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 centuries of warfare. Humiliation, rage, and underneath it all, fear. He had come to destroy Earth. Instead, Earth had destroyed him. But his pride wouldn't let him retreat, not without striking one blow. "All ships," Zelthorn said quietly, "follow me. We will reach Earth or die trying." His remaining ships formed up for a final charge. 62 vessels against an entire star system. It was suicide. Zelthorn knew it. But the alternative was returning to the Empire in defeat, admitting that humans had beaten him. "Sensors show the Valorian fleet is charging," reported Captain Park from the Indomitable's tactical station. "They're heading straight for Earth. In you. They're heading straight for Earth. Intercept course," Choi ordered. "All ships, formation Delta. Time to end this." The human battle fleet moved to meet the Valorians. Choi's flagship, the Indomitable, led the charge. But he didn't engage the entire enemy fleet. He had a specific target. "Target the Valorian flagship only," Choi said. "Cut it off from the others." The Indomitable jumped, appearing directly in front of Zelthorn's ship. 2 other human destroyers materialized on the flanks. The Valorian flagship was isolated from its fleet, surrounded. "Zelthorn," Choi broadcast. "You and me. Right now. Ship to ship. If you win, we let your fleet through to Earth. If I win, you surrender and retreat. Let's settle this the old-fashioned way." Zelthorn stared at the comm display. A duel? No commander had offered him such a thing in 200 years. It was primitive, barbaric, honorable, in a way the Empire had forgotten. "Accepted," Zelthorn said. "All ships, stand down. Do not interfere." The 2 flagships faced each other in the darkness of space. For a moment, everything else stopped. Both fleets watched. Park Bora's cameras captured every second. The entire galaxy watched 2 commanders test each other. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Choi's ship moved like a predator, jumping short distances, appearing and vanishing, striking and dodging. Zelthorn's flagship was larger, stronger, but slower. It fired massive plasma volleys that would destroy any ship they hit, but they never hit. Choi didn't try to destroy the flagship. He targeted specific systems. Jump, fire, disappear. The weapons clusters. Jump, fire, disappear. The shield generators. Jump, fire, disappear. Zelthorn's flagship drifted helplessly, crippled, but not destroyed. On his bridge, alarms screamed and fires burned. His crew worked desperately to restore power. "Surrender." Choi's voice came over the comm. "And I'll spare you and your ships." Zelthorn looked around his ruined bridge. He thought of the Emperor's orders. He thought of his centuries of service. He thought of his pride. "Never," he said. "Then die with honor," Choi replied quietly. Zelthorn activated his flagship's self-destruct. The reactor detonation would destroy his ship and take Choi with him. But in the 5 seconds before the reactor critical point, Choi's ship jumped away. The Valorian flagship exploded in a flash of light that briefly lit up the entire solar system. Grand Admiral Zelthorn died believing he had maintained his honor. The remaining Valorian fleet, leaderless and broken, surrendered immediately. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Seoul. President Lee Nari stood in the council chamber in Geneva, looking at reports from across the galaxy. The Valorian Empire was in chaos. 17 sectors had declared independence. Species that had been conquered centuries ago suddenly remembered how to fight back. The galaxy was changing. "They're requesting a meeting," said her chief of staff. "The Valorian Senate. They want to negotiate peace." President Lee had never expected to hold this position during a galactic war. She had been elected to oversee colony expansion and trade agreements. Instead, she was making decisions that would affect billions of lives across hundreds of worlds. "What do our military advisors say?" she asked. Admiral Choi Min-jun entered the room. He looked tired. The battle had aged him, but his eyes were still sharp. "We can win," he said bluntly. "If we press our advantage now, we could destroy the Valorian Empire completely. They're weak. Their fleet is scattered. Some of their subject species are asking us for help with their rebellions. But President Lee knew there was more. But we didn't fight this war to become conquerors," Choi said. "We fought to be free. If we destroy the Empire, we become the Empire. Just with a different name." Ambassador Kwon Kyung-soo spoke up. He was humanity's first official diplomat to alien species, a role that hadn't existed a year ago. "There's also the practical matter. If we topple the Valorian Empire, we create a power vacuum. 17 sectors are already in rebellion. How many more will follow? The galaxy could descend into total war. Billions could die." President Lee sat down heavily. The weight of the decision pressed on her shoulders. "What do the people want?" "Live. Alive. Gona." President Lee: "That depends which people you ask," said her chief of staff. "The military wants to finish what we started. The colonists want security. Earth wants peace. Everyone wants different things." There was a knock on the chamber door. Captain Park Ji-woo entered, now promoted to admiral. She carried data pads filled with intelligence reports. "Madam President, we've been contacted by a species called the Prios. They were conquered by the Valorians 300 years ago. Their representative is asking to speak with you." "Send them in," President Lee said. The Prios representative entered. Her name was Zenla, and she looked like a cross between a bird and a cat, with feathers and fur mixed together in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow did. She moved gracefully, but there was caution in her eyes. "President Lee," Zenla said, her translator device rendering her words in perfect English. "My people watched your battle. We watched you defeat the Empire. We watched you prove that the Valorians are not invincible." She paused. "We want what you have. We want to be free. We're not an empire." President Lee said carefully, "We can't free you. That's something you need to do yourselves." "We understand," Zenla said. "But we're asking for alliance, protection, trade. Help us stand on our own, and we will stand beside you. Not beneath you, beside you." President Lee looked at her advisors. This was new territory. Humanity had barely been in space for a generation. Now they were being asked to help shape galactic politics. "I need to think about this," President Lee said. Over the following weeks, more species reached out. Some wanted alliance. Some wanted protection. Some just wanted to trade with a species that had defeated the mighty Valorian Empire. Humanity found itself at the center of something larger than they had anticipated. In the military command center, Admiral Park Ji-woo prepared for a different mission. The Indomitable was being refitted, not for war but for exploration. Her orders were to map unknown space beyond the former Valorian borders, to seek out new species and establish peaceful contact. "You volunteered for this?" Admiral Choi asked her over drinks in the officers' lounge. "After a year of fighting, I want to see what else is out there," Park said. "Besides, someone needs to prove humans can be more than warriors." Choi smiled. "Just don't let your guard down. The galaxy is still dangerous." "I'm counting on it," Park said. "What about you? Retirement?" "Not yet," Choi said. "They want me to help train the new fleet. And someone needs to make sure we stay ready. The Valorians might accept peace, but there are other empires out there. Some might see what happened as an opportunity." Meanwhile, the peace negotiations began. They took place in neutral space, on a station built specifically for the meeting. The Valorian Senate sent their best diplomats. Humanity sent Ambassador Kwon. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. The Valorians wanted limited concessions. They wanted to maintain most of their territory and power. Ambassador Kwon said, "No. You came to Earth threatening annihilation," Quan said calmly during one session. You lost. You don't get to dictate terms. Here's what humanity wants: full independence for any species that requests it. Reparations for the war you started. Open technology exchange. And you will never, ever threaten human space again. Those are the terms. The Valorian diplomat, an elderly member of their species named Kalthos, sat in silence for a long moment. The Empire has existed for 50,000 years, he said quietly. We have never accepted such terms. Then you can continue fighting, Quan said. We're ready. Are you? Kalthos looked at the human ambassador. He saw no bluff, no uncertainty. The humans meant what they said. They would fight forever if necessary, and the Empire, weakened and divided, would lose. We accept your terms, Kalthos said. Not everyone was happy with the peace. On Earth, a political faction called the Supremacy Movement argued that humanity should press its advantage. They held rallies demanding the complete conquest of the Valorian Empire. We won, shouted their leader at a demonstration. Why should we stop? Why should we let them keep any power at all? President Lee addressed the movement directly in a broadcast. Because we're not fighting for domination, she said. We're fighting for freedom. There's a difference. If we become conquerors, we become everything we fought against. Yes, we could destroy the Empire. But at what cost? How many billions would die? How many species would suffer? We won the war. Let's not lose ourselves in the process. The Terran Compact was formed 6 months after the battle. It started with 5 species: humans, the Prios, the Kelvan, the Sorthi, and the independent Valorian colonies that had broken away from the Empire. The charter was simple: mutual defense, free trade. No member could conquer or subjugate another. Decisions were made by consensus, not by force. It wasn't an empire. It was an alliance of equals. The formal peace ceremony happened in orbit around Earth. Ships from a dozen species gathered, their crews watching, as President Lee and the Valorian Senate representative signed the treaty. War correspondent Park Bora was there, broadcasting to the galaxy. 1 year ago, Park said into her camera, the Valorian Empire came to Earth expecting easy conquest. They found resistance. They found defiance. They found humanity at our best and our worst. Today, we sign a peace that proves something important. War doesn't have to end with total destruction. Peace doesn't require submission. Both can exist with dignity. After the ceremony, Admiral Choi stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, looking at Earth below. A young Valorian officer approached him nervously. The officer's name was Shentok, and he had survived the Battle of Seoul. Admiral Choi, Shentok said, may I ask you something? Go ahead, Choi said, lighting a cigarette despite the no-smoking regulations. Why did you stop? You could have destroyed us. Your forces could have reached our homeworld. Why show mercy? Choi was quiet for a moment, watching the smoke curl in the recycled air. Because we're not monsters, kid. We're humans. We fight when we have to. We fight hard. We fight dirty. But when the fight is over, we show mercy. That's what separates warriors from murderers. The Empire fears you now, Shentok said quietly. Good, Choi said. Fear keeps people honest. But respect? That's what maintains peace. You tell your people something. Tell them humanity doesn't want subjects or enemies. We want partners. We want trade. We want to explore and build and grow. But if anyone threatens Earth again, if anyone threatens our freedom or our allies, they'll learn the same lesson you did. What lesson is that? Shentok asked. Choi smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone who had survived everything life could throw at him. That humans spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare on a planet that was trying to kill us since we learned to walk. We survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and our own stupidity. We fought each other over everything imaginable and learned from every battle. You can defeat us, but you'll pay a price that makes victory worthless." The young Valorian officer bowed and left. Choi finished his cigarette and crushed it out. Around him, through the viewport, he could see ships from dozens of species. The galaxy was changing. Humanity had forced that change. Admiral Park Ji-woo's exploration fleet departed a week later. The Indomitable led a group of 5 ships beyond known space, looking for new worlds, new species, new possibilities. Their mission was peaceful, but every ship carried weapons. Trust, but verify. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. President Lee watched the fleet jump away from her office on Earth. She thought about the past year. The fear, the war, the victories, the losses. Humanity had proven something to the galaxy and to themselves. They could fight. They could win. But more importantly, they could choose peace without weakness. The Valorian Empire continued to exist, smaller and humbler. Some species joined the Terran Compact. Some remained independent. Some chose to stay with the Empire. The galaxy found a new balance, one where humans were no longer unknown primitives but respected equals. In the decades that followed, historians would study the war. They would analyze the tactics, the technology, the politics, but what they remembered most was humanity's reaction when a galactic empire came to conquer them. Pure derision, complete defiance, and when the fighting ended, surprising mercy. That combination of strength and restraint earned humanity something no weapon could provide: genuine respect. And in the vast darkness of space, that respect mattered more than any empire ever could.